This is Dan Bolen, and I'm the host of the podcast, The Courage to Be Courageous, where people can come and hear stories of people from all over the United States who have faced their fear and used courage to get through it. We'd like to welcome you all to our podcast today. I have a special guest here, Brad Davis, who happens to be on the board of directors for the Frontrunner organization and Walker organization in San Diego County. Brad, it's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
So, Brad, tell us a little bit about your story, and let's go back to where you were raised and your military background, I think, which is fascinating, and we're going to hear some very powerful things from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we go all the way back, my father was in the Air Force, and I was born out of a suitcase. Went to kindergarten in France, first, second, and third grade in Germany, and moved back to the States and went to high school, and then joined the Air Force and completed college just after I got out of the Air Force.
Wow. So you were in the Air Force totally how long?
5 years active duty, 2 years in the active reserves.
Okay, great. And your father was in the Air Force as well.
He was, and he was a fighter pilot and bombardier in Vietnam.
Wow, excellent. So tell us a little bit about when you knew you were different or gay, how it came out, and tell us how your family responded to that.
That's a very good question. Ever since I could remember, I always knew I was different.
Yes.
It came back even before there was any sexual attraction, but I always admired boys, is I guess the term that I use, more than, I admired boys, I mean, I had girlfriends, but they were girlfriends. But I grew up in I went to elementary school in the 60s and 70s and high school in the late 70s. I graduated in the class of 78. And I was raised without even an idea of what it meant to be gay or what it was to be gay.
Okay.
The only thing I remember, my parents had this book called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, but Were Afraid to Ask.
Okay.
And so I remember being 14 or 15 and open up the book and they had a section on homosexuality. And I go, oh no, that can't be me, because it said that gay people are feminine and they behave this way and that way. I said, no, I mean, I can't be a homosexual. I just like boys.
Right. Yeah. You didn't fit the stereotype at that time.
No, I certainly did not, because I've always been, my father was a man's man. And even today, I'm always consider myself, a man's man. I like girls and women, but just in a different respect. So this had always, as long as back as I can remember, almost going back to, elementary school, I knew I was different.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now when you came out to let's talk about when you came out to your dad, obviously being a former military executive. How did he react to that?
Another good question, but when I talk about coming out, I believe that coming out is actually a process, not an act.
I agree.
You need to come out to yourself, first of all, is realize, hey, I am gay. And you need to accept that. That's the first person really is to come out to yourself. Then you have friends to come out to, you have family to come out to, business associates or people around who you work with. And not all of these acts necessarily come at the same time. It's a little different today than it was back in the, late 70s and early 80s. Today it's a more open, even 8-year-old kids know what gay is.
Yes.
And most kids know I'm either gay or I'm not. It's an inherent trait that you do not choose. So my journey started with me coming out to myself, realizing I was gay, going to my first gay bar, having my first gay encounter. And then when I came to terms with that, the next person I came out to a few months later was my father.
And I believe, didn't you come out to him on your 21st birthday?
Well, that's actually when I went to my first grade bar and had my first sexual
Oh,
experience.
okay. So it was a little after that then.
Just a couple months thereafter, yeah. And after I got exposed to the gay community and I felt like a kid in a candy store, all of a sudden when I came out, when I realized there was a gay community that I could fit in with, it's like all of a sudden as my eyes were wide open, hallelujah came down from heaven, and I'm going, what have I been missing? So when I came out to my father, though, a couple months after, my first experience, I called my dad up. He was always accepting. My dad only had one rule for me: do not lie. Anything, I will defend you no matter what. Do not lie to me. 3 rules: don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, Dad, I was still 21 years old, but a couple months after I realized myself." And I said, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm gay." And he said, "Well, son, if you're not sure, maybe you should talk to somebody." And I said, "No, Dad, actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm gay." He goes, "Fine. What are you having for dinner tonight?" Like it was nothing.
And he was a retired Air Force officer.
Yeah, a fighter pilot in Vietnam, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's incredible. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your mother. Maybe a little different story there.
Maybe.
Well, let's hear that.
Yeah, so probably about circa early 90s, like 10 years later, my mom was always asking me, like, when are you going to get married and this or that? And she was a very deeply religious person. We're talking Pentecostal. And Pentecostal sort of takes evangelical to another level. They're the ones that speak in tongues, swing from the chandeliers, hold snakes, and all that kind of stuff. So
now, your parents at this time were divorced. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were divorced.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been divorced.
Okay, but you came out to on 2 different separate occasions.
2 different separate occasions,
Okay.
10 years apart, actually.
10 years apart. Wow.
Again, that's why I believe that coming out, at least back in my day, it was a process.
Absolutely, I agree.
So my mom came, and I had a lover. I've been living with him for like 2 years. And of course, according to my mom, he was a roommate. And my mom said, I finally decided now is the time. And I took my mom out to nice places and everything. And I said, "Hey, Mom, I need to tell you that I'm gay." And she goes, "By gay, do you mean a homosexual?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do." And she said, "Take me, I'm going to pack my bags very quickly. Take me to the airport." Airport was closed, so I dropped her off at a hotel. "Take me out. You're not my son anymore. It's over. It's done with." So she packed her bags, and I took her to a hotel near the airport, and she flew back to Boise the next morning.
Wow. Well, it took you courage to come out to your dad and your mom, but you got a different different feedback from your mom. And did that make you estranged from her for a while?
Yes. I mean, I know my parents well enough. I expected that response from my dad just because I know him and his character. And I know my mom, and I expected that response. I did not expect anything less, although I was a little shocked by the severity of her response. And so I didn't speak to her for almost 2 years. Although after 6 months, she did come back and say, "You're still my son, even though I know that you're living in sin and you're going to go to hell. You're still my son, and I still love you." She'd leave messages like that, and I wouldn't even return the call. It took me almost a couple of years to come around and reconnect with her.
And I think I understand that. I think I also understand the severity of what she said. To tell you that you're not her son, I can see where it would take some time to come back from that.
It was devastating.
Devastating, yes. Now, tell us a little bit more about your mom, because I want my podcasters to know I was able to do a preview with. I was able to do a preview with Brad yesterday evening, and I think this is a real powerful. It shows forgiveness, and it shows acceptance. Tell us a little bit about how you were able to get reconnected with your mom.
Well, so a few years later, I'm currently with my partner of 20. It'll be 25 years this August. And when my mom flew down to visit us in San Francisco, and I introduced the two of them, and we had a nice time. But unfortunately, we really went out of our way to be polite, accepting, and really sweet. And as soon as I would get up and leave a restaurant or leave the two of them alone, my mother would say, honey, I know you're going to hell, and so is my son. And so you really need to stop this. You're both very handsome young men, and you both belong with nice women. Mm-hmm. And, when I found out about this, I was absolutely mortified. I mean, having your partner be told that they're going to go to hell.
Yes. Yeah.
While you're not there by your mother. I mean, it makes your skin crawl.
Absolutely. And your partner is Steve, and you're still with Steve today.
Yes.
So obviously you were shocked with that, particularly after you had waited 2 years to return a relationship with her. And then you were shocked with it, especially when she tells Steve that. So how did you deal with that, and how were you able to come at even more peace with your mother?
Well, a few years later, my mother had a near-death experience, and she went into a nursing home. And nobody was expecting her to recover, but she did. Mm-hmm. And she spent 6 or 7 years in a nursing home. And Steve and I both, and this is part of the forgiveness part, it doesn't mean when you forgive somebody, it doesn't mean that you accept it. It just means you're not going to let it mess with your brain anymore. You're going to let it go.
Absolutely.
And let it be. So she went in a nursing home, and Steve and I would religiously, that's probably a poor choice at first, we would visit her in the nursing home, 2 to 3 times every year for 3 to 4 days at our own expense.
Oh my gosh. And I think it's interesting because I said, Brad, how were you able to do that? Because she still was not totally accepting. And he said, you had to suck it up. Yep. And to be able to put forgiveness above your own. I think it shows the courage to be forgiving. And sometimes we can be forgiving. And you made a good comment. Doesn't mean we accept it, but we forgive it.
But that's what took the most, if you want to use the word courage or what have you, is to actually forgive my mother, not accept her attitude or behavior, but to still realize she's my mother and I'm going to be there for her, even though, she essentially treats me like, I would rather use a stronger word, but, would treat me like crap. Mm-hmm. Because even when we would go and visit her, my mother was even though she was a Pentecostal, she was a longtime alcoholic. And she hadn't drank in a while, but every time we go and visit her, we'd take her out and she would have 2 or 3 glasses of wine. And before she even had a second glass of wine, I would get up to the bathroom, get up from the table, go to the bathroom, and she would tell Steve almost every single trip that he was still going to hell.
Yeah. Well, alcohol sometimes when you've had more than you should to drink, you say things that you shouldn't say. So I get what you're saying that. Well, that was so courageous of how you and Steve were able to forgive her, accept her. And I want to hear, I know you have a brother. I believe he's younger than you?
He's a few years younger, yes.
How was that relationship? I know you came out to him.
Yeah, being gay doesn't have anything to do with it for multiple family reasons and personal issues. I would prefer not to go into that. My brother has a history of severe drug addiction and things, and let's just say being less than kind to his kids.
Yes, I understand that. Yes. Well, I appreciate that comment. So that's all of your family as far as you only had you and your brother, no sisters, and then your mom and dad. I want to talk just for a second, go back a little bit, because you've done some pretty amazing things in the military. You've worked on rescue missions, and you've done a lot. Give us just a little history of some of the work that you've done, that you did in the Air Force, that really shows that you really were committed to protecting this country and helping individuals. I think you were very courageous. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what I did in the Air Force was a very elite and esoteric group called Pararescue. We were called PJs for short. And our mission was to go anywhere, under any condition, and rescue a person or recover an object anytime, anywhere, under any condition. That includes scuba diving, mountain climbing, rock climbing, parachuting, jumping into the water, you name it, anywhere to go up and do that. And our mission was that others may live. And that was and I truly believed in the mission that others may live. And that was our goal. And it was a very an elite and very bonding group. And it was actually the funny story is I was actually deployed on a training mission when I actually came out to myself and went to my first gay bar, and I had my eyes opened. So I was in the Air Force. I've been in for like 2 years. I was stationed in Florida. We went to Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada. We went out and we did a mission one day. They had a pilot in the lake, and we parachuted to the pilot. We pretended to treat him, his fake injuries. Helicopter came, hoisted us both out of the water, came back, and it was my birthday, my 21st birthday. When I got back, they had a keg of beer, had a couple beers. They threw me in the pool. And next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, and I'm sitting in my room by myself. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to a gay bar. It's on my 21st birthday. Never been to one. The only thing I knew about gay bars is what I saw in Cruising with Al Pacino. And I expected, like leather, and just really intense stuff. And so I went, I called a dirty bookstore. They gave me the name. It was called The Garage. I took a cab to the garage. I walked in there. It was a really nice bar. It was like totally high end. I said, I must have come to the wrong place, because there were normal people there. And so as soon as I walked through the door, I heard somebody say, "Hey, Brad, come over here. And so I looked over there, and there was the co-pilot of the helicopter that pulled us out of the lake that day. He was a first lieutenant and an airman that was a crew chief on our helicopter. And so I walked over and I go, "Oh, shit, crap." They go, Brad, we didn't know that you were gay. And I go, "Well, I didn't know exactly I was either." And so I met them. We had a good time, lots of fun. So every night, the rest of the time we were deployed to Nellis before we went back to our base in Florida, I was at the gay bar like every chance I could get.
Yes.
Because it was like, wow, I can't believe it. And then when I got back to base, the helicopter pilot and the crew chief on the thing introduced me to this whole underground world. There were everything from full colonels down to zero stripe airmen that were gay, and all of a sudden like these are like normal people. And all of a sudden I realized I really felt that I started to belong, and I self-identified. I am a gay man, and there are other people like me. And it was like, I had no idea. It's like the skies opened up and the angels sang hallelujah, so to speak.
Yes, I got that. And I think it's interesting, Brad and I were talking yesterday, that you couldn't come out during that generation. It was considered, if you came out, you would be dismissed from the military, from the Air Force. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit, because I know it's changed now. It's changed, but back then, it wasn't possible to come out and keep your position with the Air Force. Is that correct?
99% yes. If you came out and it was known, you would be administratively discharged. If somebody said that you were gay, and that you ended up admitting that you're gay, if you had molested a little girl, or if you had stolen something, or if you had gone AWOL, you have a criminal proceeding in which you have rights. Back then, the gay was an administrative thing. You had no rights. You were instantly kicked out administratively. Nothing, no words said or done. But that said, if you had trusted friends, which I did come out to a few trusted friends that were straight. And I was, you could, but if it ever got, if it ever became known, or you ever admitted it, you're on the street just like that.
Yes. Now it's changed. We've seen more rights now that you can be gay, openly gay in the military. We've come a long way, but back then they were not able to do that. So I understand that. Let's talk a little bit about, and thank you for sharing that. I want our audience to know that where we are today with gay rights, LGBTQ rights, is not where we were certainly not back in Brad's day, certainly not back in my day. I'm going to talk about this at the end of our podcast, about having a voice and not remaining visible, not remaining invisible. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We have to have a voice, and we're going to come back to that. But I want to talk a little bit about the front runners of San Diego. My partner and I, John, spend the summers in San Diego. He actually works in Phoenix, but he flies out every weekend. And we got connected with the front runners group in San Diego. It's an incredible group of people, both men and women, and lesbian, gay, transgendered, but also we have some straight people that come to it. We're very inclusive of all people. So normally we have about 60 to 70 people. It is a community, and we're going to talk about how we can do that. But it's a great community. We go after the front runners and front walkers. We do Balboa Park, which is absolutely beautiful. A great bunch of friends. Nobody, if you come there, is going to ask you whether you're gay or not. They want you to come because it's a community. So Brad, of course, is on the board of directors for the community there. Tell us a little bit about how you got attached to front runners, and what do you think about a community of front runners and front walkers, which is international now? Share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, my first experience with front runners was in San Francisco back in the early 90s. I had a friend that was a front runner and said, "Hey, you should come run with us." And I went and ran with them. And then they were doing this event for the Gay Pride Parade in San Francisco one year, where we would all kind of run the parade route carrying a gay flag, and half of us dressed up as brides and half of us dressed up as grooms.
Okay, Brad, before we go any further, were you a bride or were you a groom?
I dressed as a groom.
Okay, good. So, I think
I couldn't bring myself to run in heels.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be difficult.
Although it would be a lie. It would be a lie to say that I've never had a dress on.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's how you got connected with him. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
And so the years pass, and Steve and I moved to San Diego, and I said, I'm going to try. The front runners is great. We didn't know a soul here, not a soul. And so I figured, I'm going to go run with the front runners. I looked them up online. I Googled them, found them on Meetup, which is a place where you can find front runners anywhere. Any major city in the world is going to almost certainly have a front runners group. And if you go, they will welcome you like family anywhere in the world. But so I went to a front runners group, and I just ran and talked with people, and I went out and had bagels and coffee with them afterwards. And instantly I felt like I have a ready-made group of friends, a ready-made group of friends.
You had a community then. Absolutely.
And a community, yes. And so I had Steve come out, and I convinced him. I actually had to drag him down there, say, it's front runners and walkers, you have to come. And so I literally drug him there, along with our poodle, Francis. He's a 45-pound standard poodle. Okay. And Steve went walking with the group. And after the walk, he said, "Brad, what have we been missing all these years?"
Yes.
And it's such a friendly community, and it's not focused. What's nice about it is there is a common theme. The common theme in front runners is people are concerned about their health, and they are concerned about being part of a community greater than themselves and keeping somewhat fit to the best of their ability. Hence, we have walkers and we have runners at all levels. We have people that run 12-minute miles, and we have several people that run the Boston and New York City Marathon here in San Diego, and place. So I brought Steve out, and after the walk, he goes, yeah, we got to join this thing. And literally, just moving to San Diego, we had a ready-made group of friends. We were invited to dinner parties. We invited people over for dinner parties. We'd go out and have cocktails with them. We would meet and do stuff. It was an amazing experience that Steve and I later on in life, like in our late 50s, all of a sudden had a ready-made group of friends and a community that is focused not just on the bar scene, although that can be a part of it, but focused on a common element of wanting to be a community, caring for one another, and keeping fit to the best of our individual abilities.
Wow. Very well put. Very well put, Brad. I have to make comment about their dog, Frances. I call her the mascot. She is such an incredible dog. She keeps us all on her toes. And I just had to make a comment about Frances. I wanted to give her a little bit of airtime right now, too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about community, because this is one of the things I think is so important for any of us, whether we're heterosexual or we're part of the LGBTQ community, is a community of voices, a community of doing things together as a family. It doesn't mean that we're only together, but we can be inclusive even with our heterosexual community as well. We don't rule out anyone, whether they're gay or whether they're straight, and that truly is a community. It's inclusive. And I think that's important for all of us, because we've seen some changes go on politically and changes in this country that are concerning all of us and concerning us. And we're starting, I think Brad made a comment yesterday, we're kind of sliding back a bit in some of the things. So I want to talk a little about having a voice. Now, I want to be able to make a comment about my own life experiences. As many of you know, I came out gay very, very late in life. I was silent. I did not have a voice. Therefore, I was invisible. And the first voice that I had to come out to was me. I had to accept me for who I was. And once I was able to accept me who I was and be able to do through the shame of that, which I used religion and work addiction to bury who I was for so many years, I then was able to have a voice to the community. Now, what I do by my podcast and my book, it's my way of doing something with my voice. People can read my book. They can read my story. They can also listen to my podcasts. All of the money that I get from my book goes to support 3 LGBTQ organizations. So this is my way of having a voice. And now I'm so proud of what I've been able to accomplish. I want us to talk to our listeners about having a voice, because we are seeing some of our rights gradually slip away. Look what happened with Roe versus Wade. Look what happened there. Whoever thought that we would see that overturned, and yet it has been overturned. So I want to encourage our podcasters to have a voice. Doesn't mean it has to be the same voice. It can be a different voice, but it has to be able to continue to fight for the rights of our community. And I think that's important. What do you think of that, Brad?
Well, I really think it's, yes, very important to have a voice. We must have a voice. And part of the community, we all feel like alone, and it's always nice to be with others. And while I am a devout front runner, there are other organizations that build community as well. And one of the most important ones that I have been a member of for over 25 years is the Human Rights Campaign. And it specifically goes, no special rights, equality. And that's why their symbol is the equal sign. It's equality. Human Rights Campaign is about complete equality. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's interesting that the Human Rights Campaign has played a lot. And really, until the last couple of years or so, gay folks, gay people have enjoyed like this, like La La Land nirvana, where everybody was seen to be accepted. We got gay marriage, everything's cool. And a lot of people stopped being active or having a voice or going out and still working on equality. But it seems because we're girls and girls just, girls just want to have fun,
right.
And everything is cool. But what galvanized the gay community initially was Stonewall when they were doing all the raids of the bars. Then came AIDS, and AIDS galvanized the gay community, and people got out and got active and had a voice. That was the next thing, and then eventually there was a march on Washington. I don't know if you remember that in 1993, where almost 1 million gay people marched on Washington in a very peaceful way. And then all of a sudden, we got what we wanted. We got gay marriage, all kinds of gay equality laws, transgender laws, But now something's happening. Something is happening we became complacent, and I'll just got to give my honest, open opinion. The gay community as a whole, probably myself included, became somewhat complacent. Now, in just the last 6 months, less than a year, there are literally hundreds of anti-gay and transgender bills being passed across the country. And if we are complacent, it will be freedoms that we still can lose. They're not guaranteed anymore. We can lose them. They overturned Roe versus Wade after how many years of precedent? That doesn't mean that they can't overturn gay marriage. That doesn't mean that a conservative court can't say, you know what, our company believes in a particular religion, and therefore we won't hire anybody unless they are conformed to the values of our particular religion. That can happen again.
And we are sliding in that direction a bit. Look what happened in, I mentioned Florida. Look what's happening in Texas. Look what's happening with the
I would
Supreme
challenge
Court.
Anybody on listening to your podcast. Read the platform of the Texas Republican Party. Major planks, major things are totally anti-gay and anti-transgender. Just read it.
And I think I'm to support what Brad just said there. We were able to attend the Trevor Project, which I support financially, in Tempe, Arizona, and we had an attorney there. This is rights against transgender and gay people. There were over close to 300 laws that the legislature was looking at to put down the rights of individuals. We're talking almost 300 laws. And that's why I'm saying it's sliding. And this is why I'm saying, whatever you are, whatever your voice is, have a voice. As the SAGE motto says, we refuse to be invisible. So have a voice. Do something with your voice. Don't sit back on your laurels and expect that we're going to get freedoms. As Brad said, they can be taken away at any time. We would never have thought the Supreme Court would make their decision like they did on abortion. And yet, look what happened. So whatever your decision is, and also we want to welcome our heterosexual allies to have a voice too, because that is a community that does, many of them do support the rights of gay rights. And so let's ally with them too, because there's a lot of them that support it. A lot of them, once they have the data, they have the information, and then they can have a voice with that as well. So I think
even going back into the 80s, there was PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Gays and Lesbians. The straight people, many straight people have supported us for decades.
Absolutely. And there are other organizations out there. There's GLAAD. There's an organization called Gamma. Many organizations out there that we can have a voice with. Get involved. And I just want to really thank Brad for having this conversation with me, this podcast. I think it was powerful. And I hope people will listen to what we say and do something. There's a difference between listening and doing action. You can listen, but if you don't do action, if you don't have your voice, nothing gets accomplished.
And what you can do that is so easy, instead of being just a voice of one, there are so many groups, front runners, human rights campaign, Google gay groups in your own neighborhood and community, and connect and form with a community, because instead of just being a single voice, you can be a voice among many, because there are other people like you with a like mind in your community wherever you live.
Absolutely. And I really encourage our listeners to do that as well, too. There are a certain amount of people we will not change, that we have to accept and forgive. Let's say 30%. But there may be 70% out there that may change or can change and will change once they've given data. Let's concentrate on those, whether they be in the LGBT community or whether they be in the heterosexual community. We want people that are willing, because what we're really talking about here is human rights, not just gay rights. We're talking human rights. All humans should have equal rights. And because of the minorities, and we're a minority, they're not guaranteed. We got to fight for them. We got to fight for them. So I hope my podcasters have enjoyed this. Brad, thank you so much for being my guest on our podcast today. We really enjoyed the story that you have, the courage that you showed to coming out to your family, the courage that you showed by being a part of the Front Runners organization, and the courage and forgiveness that you showed toward your mom. That's powerful, because forgiveness is important, but so doesn't mean we accept it. But forgiveness is important. Thank you, Brad. It's been my pleasure. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you in San Diego at the Front Runners.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.